So we're on the second part of do not commit adultery. Hopefully since last time you haven't committed adultery. Last time we really got to the core value, and we spoke about how loyalty, being faithful in our commitments and promises in relationships, is the core value of do not commit adultery. Once we've made a commitment, once we've given our word, and sometimes even when it's implicitly understood, part of being what I think is a part of Tselem Elokim, part of this image of God, which these 10 commandments so much speak to us about, is having this ability to go beyond one's animal instincts and selfishness to be committed to relationships and what that means. And we started speaking about different relationships and how it applies. So I just want to get the okay. That's okay. So let's look at this source over here. We're going to start over here at the bottom of page 6. A which means a base fellow gives away secrets, but a trustworthy soul keeps a confidant, able to keep a secret. Right? Part of loyalty, and in a relationship, having a loyal friend means someone that often you can confide in, and you feel 100% secure that what you are sharing is going to be kept a secret. This one over here, B'chol eit ohev harei va'ach l'tzara yivale. A friend is loved at all times. A brother is born to share adversity. That's an interesting one. That a friend is there for the good times and the bad times. Friends are often, the word in Hebrew over here is rei. Haftela re'echa, your neighbor. Va'ach, an ach, a brother, l'tzara yivale. An ach is made for a times of need. Who's there that is going to be in time of need? And I think that's one of the implicit implications. That's the same word, just using different terms. That's one of the implications of being a family member, is that you're expected to take care of your family when they're in need. The rules of tzedakah are that tzedakah very much starts at home, and then it's concentric circles about who gets tzedakah. But right here, by the way, who the first people in the world that you have to give tzedakah to?
Your family.
Do you know?
Yep.
Your parents or your children?
Parents.
Yeah, your parents come before your children, right? Because it's part of kibbud avim. Okay, let's look at this. Yossi ben Yochanan ish Yerushalayim Amar, Yihi beisach petuach lerevacha. Your house should be open wide. V'hayu aniyim b'nei beisach, and the poor should be members of your household. So, what's the first part talking about? Your house should be an open wide for anyone, and you should make the poor members of your household, not only as visitors, but have them feel that they have a real, b'nei beisecha, a ben bayit means that you feel at home there. You're not just a visitor. Remember when I was in yeshiva, there was a house, a family, the Hirsches, in Mea Sharim, and we used to, yeshiva bachrim go out for Shabbos generally. We used to go to this family, and it was, I don't know what they were really. Were they Hasidim or Yerushalmi? I don't know what their sect was, but there were two interesting things. One thing was the men and the women ate in different rooms. And the other thing was that there were always poor people at the table. And the poor person, they were really vagabonds. There were people, I think, doesn't mean like a destitute people. And they would sit right next to the balabais. Mr. Hirsch would sit at the top of the table, and next to him, Mamish, would sit this poor homeless guy. And it was an amazing thing to see that he took care of him, and he made sure that he felt b'nei b'secha. So these point to our responsibility, and therefore our sense of loyalty towards community, right? We live in community. We should feel part of that and realize what our responsibilities are within the community. Okay. So this is interesting in terms of a relationship. Not all relationships are all the time fuzzy and warm. The Talmud says, happy is the man who has his quiver full of them, that they shall not be put to shame when they speak with their enemies in the gate. Now that's a verse in Psalms. And the Gemara asks, what is the meaning of the phrase enemies in the gate with regard to Torah study? So so it's understood the context to be Torah study. And Rabbi Chia Ba'Abba says, even a father and a son, or a rabbi and a student who are engaged in Torah together in one gate become enemies with each other due to the intensity of their studies. But they do not leave there until they love one another. So it's an interesting idea that there's a sense of competition entered into Torah study. What's pshat? What does it mean? How can it mean that? And fighting for the truth. But it shouldn't remain there. It shouldn't remain there. It should come out that they love each other in the end. Why? Because obviously they found the truth. Through that debate, they find the truth. So let's see the conversation over here. What are some of the commitments made in the following relationships? Parents, children. We spoke about that being kibbutz of honoring parents. Siblings. What are our responsibilities and commitments to our siblings? Friends, teachers, students, members of the community. Are they explicit or implicit or both? Is there value to keeping commitments implicit, or should they be made explicit? Now that's a good question to me. I would think part of being a friend during coronavirus pandemic is keeping in touch somewhat.
You're gone.
Who? Me?
Yes, your voice disappeared. You're back again.
Oh, I'm back. Okay. I would think that being a good friend during the pandemic means being in touch, right? Staying in touch. You can do it through text, email, WhatsApp, calling, whatever you want. So that's not an explicit, no one ever signed on the dotted line saying, hey, I want to be your friend. Will you call me during a pandemic? There's no written rule like that. It's implicit. It's just understood. Do you think there's value in keeping commitments implicit, or should they be made explicit? And I guess part of the question is the third question: should commitments in relationships always be reciprocal? Can you have relationships in which, I think, especially when it comes to marriage, often one of the issues is, I give so much more than my partner seems to give. Well, is something wrong? Is something essentially wrong with that? Comments, please.
Define the word give. And sorry I'm late, Rolf.
Define the word give?
Yes.
I think giving means, in the sense that I'm talking about, doing things for the other, in mind for the other person, being conscious of wanting to do things the way they like them to be done. You know, Greg, it means putting the cap back on the toothpaste because you know your wife likes that, right? Even though you wouldn't do it for yourself. So it's clearly it's for their sake, not for you. You know, would it be incorrect for a marriage that one person does a lot more for the other?
On some occasions, maybe,
I want
but
to say
generally,
this.
Go ahead. Sorry.
which one?
You.
Okay. Some occasionally, you do get those people who give more than others. So if that's in your personality, that's one thing. But it should be, I think, more of an equal basis. However, you will always get someone that will give extra. Just because that's, I don't know, the way you are.
Uh-huh. So interesting. Whether it's, I like that. Some people's personality, by personality, they are more giving people. They like to give.
Or you can say that that person might be more mindful and more
Uh-huh.
conscientious of the other person's needs and what the other person may be.
Maybe they're more developed in that sense. I agree. Okay, very interesting. Yeah, Adam.
Sorry, Jessica, I apologize. I'm sorry, Jessica. I've forgotten your name. I'm sorry.
Me, Ilana.
Ilana, sorry. I apologize for interrupting there.
At all.
So yeah, I think I agree with you that that there are sometimes occasions where one party does give of more, and I think, you know, my initial reaction to the question, or my initial thoughts about the question, is yes, it's problematic.
Is it problematic? Adam, hi, it's Greg. How are you doing, dude? Nice to speak to you again.
Thank you, Andrew.
Is it problematic though? I mean, I can tell you now that I love giving. I love helping my wife. I love being able to give. I don't view it as giving more or less. I view it as I give what I'm able to give, and she gives what she's able to give. And that the minute you start viewing it as a compromise, why am I giving more? That's a sign that there's an underlying concern or issue.
Agreed.
Not necessarily for everyone, but I can tell you from personal experience, in my first marriage, that was one of the first signs that I should have been aware of. I'm not saying that my situation is the same for everybody.
Of course.
You're very wise, Greg. I think, you know, you would want to, you know, we spoke about earlier in the previous class, I don't know if you watched it, the idea that marriage specifically is a covenant, which means, the way we defined it was a merging of identities.
That was Tuesday's class, I think.
And if that's true, if that's what a covenant is, and that's what marriage is meant to be about. So, you know, on an average day, my right hand probably does more work than my left hand. But you know, there's no competition here. We're working together. It's one entity. So, you know, I think often actually with kids, you know, the dynamic does change a bit, where depending on the setup, but you know, generally speaking, I think mothers are more involved with their children than fathers. And you know, it could be coronavirus set this on its head. But, you know, generally speaking, mothers are more involved with their children, and a husband might end up feeling, wait, why am I doing everything for, you know, I'm the second fiddle over here. Where if he understands clearly, wait, there's a family dynamic here, and my role is, you know, to work, to take care of people, to help, and I'm not so much the recipient. You know, bear in mind, what does God get from us, right? What does God do for us, and what do we do for him? You know, that's the ultimate case where, you know, God is the provider and we are the recipients. And do we think in terms of what am I doing for God? So it's, I think, again, going back to that Selim Elokim, it's part of being godly is to give without expecting to get back. You know, if we could get to that level, once again, we got to be honest with who we are and what we could expect. What about friendships? Do those always have to be reciprocal?
To a certain degree, yes. You can't have a one-sided friendship where one person's making the effort all the time.
You see, you know, Ilona, it's really, again, like Adam actually said before, you know, my first reaction is you're right. But then the more I think about it, you know, let's say I'm a good communicator. I have no issue picking up the phone, calling people, getting in touch with people. Some people, that's not what they don't enjoy that. That's an obstacle for them. But once they're involved in a conversation, they love it, and they'll be there in the, you know. So, or some people have a good memory and they'll remember your birthday, and they'll remember what's going on with your life, and they'll be in touch. Other people don't, and they'll just forget. But not because they are a worse friend, but because I'm going to call it skill set. Their skill set is different. So I think we have to take a deeper look at things and say, okay, superficially, we can't measure things, you know, tit for tat. But in a deeper sense, yeah, is there a commitment to the relationship or a enjoyment of the relationship, maybe, which is reciprocal? I would agree to that.
And how is that quantified, Rabbi?
Sorry?
How is that quantified if not by calling people up when you haven't spoken for a long time, calling them up on their birthday? You know, isn't that a way of quantifying how committed one is to a relationship?
Yes, I don't think you can quantify it. I think you have to qualify it. Meaning, you know, is the quality, when you are in touch, do you feel the quality of your relationship as being, well, you know, let me ask you a question. You know, what is a friend for? You know, what are the commitments of friendship? You know, we saw over here, you know, b'chol eis ohev harei. So, you know, a friend is loved at all times. A brother is born to share adversity. You know, that's a very interesting verse. You know, what is it really telling us? You have to be there all the time for everyone? I'm not sure. Okay, a lot of food for thought. I do.
Yeah.
But all of you, you know, you can all call me whenever you want. Okay.
You know that. I know that.
Okay. This is an interesting part over here. Let's see what we can do with it. There was a guy called Martin Buber, a very interesting thinker. He explained that humans are defined by two word pairs, I, it, I, thou. The I, it refers to the world of experience and sensation. It can be said that I have many distinct and different relationships with each it, and there are its in one's life. Fundamentally, it refers to the world as we experience it. By contrast, the word pair I, thou describes the world of relations. This is the I that does not objectify any it, but rather acknowledges a living relationship. I-thou relationships are sustained in the spirit and mind of an I, for however long the feeling of relationship is the dominant mode of perception. These kinds of relationships take grace, the opportunity to experience holiness, and choice, the conscious choice to move beyond our needs and will. So, you know, I don't know if, you know, Adam, you asked me how do we quantify it, and I said we qualify it. I think he's dealing with that here. This is, you know, let's see what he writes. All actual life is encounter. The I of the basic word, I, you, is different from that of the basic word, I, it. The I of the basic word, I, it appears as an ego, and it becomes conscious of itself as the subject of the experience in use. I'm sipping my coffee, right? I have no relationship with my coffee. The I of the basic word, I, you, appears as a person and becomes conscious of itself as subjectivity, without any dependent genitive, i.e., without any of clause. Egos appear by setting themselves apart from other egos. Persons appear by entering into relation to other persons, right? So the pasuk says, "Taiva yavakesh nifrad." The selfish person is separate by definition. The person who is involved in real relationships doesn't see themselves as separate so much. You are one with the other. You know, there's an entity of relationship. One is the spiritual form of natural differentiation. The other is of natural association. The purpose of setting oneself apart is to experience and use. The purpose of that is living, which means dying one human life long. The purpose of relation is the relation itself, touching the you. For as soon as we touch a you, we are touched by the breath of eternal life. Pretty deep words. Let's see. What is the downside of living in transactional relationships? How has Berber inspired us to go beyond the I, it to the I, thou? And what are the implications for this in our daily lives? How has technology changed the relationship dynamic? Is an I, thou relationship possible in virtual community? Any comments on those questions? And you might say, what on earth does Berber mean? Which is fine, because I'm partly with you.
Sorry, it's over my head, hey?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
Well, you know, I think maybe a way to get into it is to think about oneself in terms of a relationship with spouse, with friends, with other people, not in a physical sense, to think about it in a metaphysical sense, in the sense of, you know, tell yourself, imagine telling yourself, you know, I share a neshama with a certain person. Let's say my neshama is shared with you guys. Your neshamas are shared with me. What does that mean? Is that we are experiencing life together in a unity, in a sense of communal experience, rather than I see you, you see me, we're at odds with each other. Rather than being at odds, we are together with each other. You know, that takes away the transactional part of it. You know, I'm not looking to use you. I'm looking to be with you. I think let's change the technology question to what is the qualitative difference between communicating through technology than face to face. Anyone? I sense there's a difference. I don't know what it is.
No, I don't see a difference.
Why? If I was with you, Barry, face to face, wouldn't there be a sense of closer contact and
yeah, maybe
interaction?
Maybe. It's a complicated thing you're talking about.
Well, we can do that now and again.
Interesting.
It's a little less personal. It's a little less personal. You can't.
Yes,
yeah. Now, this is all very well to have the technology and everything else, as you can see with the children with their phones and all that. They're losing out the personal connection. And it's the same with this.
Do you ask your kids if they think they are? They don't think they are, by the way.
They don't see it. They don't see it.
You know,
But we can see it. We can see the difference. They don't know how to interact.
Can you define that? In which way is it qualitatively different? You know, actually, from a teaching point of view, I find it a little easier to teach online than in person. I'm less. My nature is to be very.
Stand that.
My nature is to be very. What's the word? Aware of the people that I'm teaching to and their reactions. Face to face, you know, if someone falls asleep in my class, it's devastating. I really find it very stressful. Now that I know that Adam and Marcus and Greg have fallen asleep and they just turned off their videos, so then it's fine. You know, okay, it doesn't make a difference.
So Rob, how was it when you gave your droshes here in Cape Town?
Yeah.
Friday night.
Don't you know Friday night is the graveyard drosha, you know? Basically, all you're doing is a favor for all those women waiting for their husbands at home. They can have a little schloff before going home and being ratty, you know? Let them sleep. Okay.
I'll turn my video on so you can see me sleeping.
Oh, okay, thank you. Marcus, looks fantastic there in the store. Okay, let's wrap up over here. Integration, which is really important, by the way, because, you know, this isn't just about learning. This is about really coming to know who we are. Is that Marcus trying to speak? Sorry, Marcus, we can't hear you. Agvaniot, Sheish V'Sheva. What happened over there, Marcus? Okay. What does this diber mean to you as a core value? Do not commit adultery. And we're going to speak, you know, being loyal. How can it be applied? When can it be applied? What are the challenges you will face, and how do we overcome them? Now, maybe I'd ask you this third question. What do you think the challenges to loyalty are in our world?
Like societal pressure to keep up with the Joneses.
How so?
That if I don't know, like you could argue that if you're, you know, if one was to be, you know, like some people have a challenge that if their neighbor gets a nice car or something like that, then they feel pressurized that they need to get, you know, to beat them or whatever, and then they could be actually displaying disloyalty to their family because they're not actually providing for the you know, providing for their own, or they're putting them at risk, or they're not providing for their own needs. That could be an aspect of disloyalty.
I hear that. So I I think what you say.
Can I
understand it is
to that?
If we in the world of, you know, becoming rich and famous, and all of us in that race, it's hard to focus on loyalty because often, yeah, it's not one's priority. So general societal pressures don't prioritize loyal fulfillment. Yeah, Greg?
I'd like to add to that as well, where I think that, okay, I know, Rov, you might not watch movies, but I definitely do.
No, chas v'shalom. How do you spell that? M-O-V-E?
M-O something, yeah, there we go, yeah, exactly. But I can tell you now, if you look at what the film industry is pushing out, they're promoting an adulterous way of life. If you look at the way they make everything look so free and easy, they're promoting it, and that's what the kids are watching. And there's no way to turn that off. There's no way to truly control it without actually having a zero screen house these days. everything's available online. From the good clean stuff to the very dirty stuff,
Right.
which I shall not name.
Voldemort.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I mean,
you know what I'm referring to. So that's promoting
that's-
exactly that adulterous affair.
yeah, I think they've capitalized on that because, you know, what are the challenges you'll face being loyal is that loyalty takes effort, it takes sacrifice, it takes real work. It's not easy, and it's much easier to be, you know, self-gratification, and especially in the, you know, our sexual life area. You know, there's a big, there's a lot of pleasure involved. There's a strong drive to self-gratification. So it does, yeah, I agree. And Hollywood and Bollywood and, you know, 3 Point Wood have all capitalized on that. So yeah, great. So so you think a zero screen? How can you overcome them? You think zero screen?
Not for my house, but I definitely think that there's a benefit to it in the houses that live by it.
So, but is there middle ground? You know, here we are on computers.
Yeah, there is, but
we have computers in our house, and you're right, Craig. Now that we have a computer, we don't have a TV, but most, you know, in 2 years' time, no one's going to have a TV. Everyone's going to have a computer. You know, it's the same thing now. You just stream everything. So, yeah, for all intents and purposes, yes, we do have a TV. Who are we fooling? You know, the question is there a middle ground?
Well, we've installed parental control software on the devices,
Right.
so we lock it. Everything's password protected. So if Teretz wants to watch something, she's limited and controlled as to what she has access to.
Right. That's good.
It's that world we live in that's become the reality, but that is the reality.
Yeah.
You know, instead of watching The Fast and the Furious, you watch Tissel. Maybe that's a middle ground.
Very difficult.
Baruch Hashem. I know what Shtisel is. I'm not sure what Fast and Furious is. Okay.
Sorry. Instead of watching Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, you watch Tissel.
Oh, okay, fine. Yeah, it needs.
But you want to know loyalty. You talk about loyalty.
Yes.
Loyalty is when you work for somebody and you give all your might to that person and not just go the other way. Not go the other way. Like, you know, when I worked for the shul, I gave everything that I had in my life, and I did it. That's what I did.
Especially in the glory days, Barry.
Yes. Remember the glory days.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that's a major thing. I love that. You know, we haven't spoken about that, but part of loyalty is in work. You know, we spoke about, we did do not steal.
Yes.
And definitely part of that is, you know, disloyalty in work is one aspect and stealing's another, and often they overlap. You know, being disloyal in work is really theft because you're getting paid for it.
That's right.
Yeah. Great. Okay, guys, fantastic. Let's just summarize so far. Number 10, do not covet. See your life as a gift, right? We're all individuals with an individual mission. Number 9, do not be a false witness. Realize the power of your speech and use it for productive purposes. Number 8, do not steal. Is really recognizing the right of possession that everyone has, and that Tselem Elokim, the image of God, and the dignity inherent in every person. And now number 7, do not commit adultery, is being loyal in our relationships, in all relationships. So I hope that you're starting to feel the power of these core values, because at the end we're going to look and say, wow, is there anything in Yiddishkeit which is not included here? And I don't believe there is. So Yeshua Koyach, and we'll see you.
I do want to ask you something, Rabbi. Can I ask you something?
Yes.
What is going on in this world? What is this all about? Are we going to learn something from this?
That's a great question, Barry. I think hopefully yes. My hunch is people will just want to get back to good old life.
Yeah.
Forget about this experience. I personally believe this is a great opportunity to do reflection on knowing oneself and one's loved ones. To think about your life. You have time. We're not traveling. Even if we're very busy, there's certain things which we are not occupied in that we can take a more objective view about our life and the way it regularly goes, and to hopefully come to some conclusions about who we are and maybe how better we could be living and what's important.
But you think we learned something? You think it's going to carry on to learn?
I'm not sure humans are very good at
Yeah, that's what I mean.
at learning. I don't know. Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know Joseph was with us. Great. Hi, Joseph.
Joseph.
Hello.
Okay.
Hi, Joseph.
Be a loyal friend, Joseph. Give me a call
Thank you.
sometime.
We'll see you
Costa.
Tuesday, Rabbi.